All right. Well, this is the second story in our set. I did not. You guys weren't with me when I shared the first story. So let me tell you kind of what some of the background. So we're going to be looking at a section in Matthew 8, and Jesus has just come from the Sermon on the Mount, and there in chapters 8 and 9 there are multiple events that happen in Jesus' life. And so last week I told the story of Jesus and the centurion who the centurion had a servant who was paralyzed, and Jesus ended up healing the centurion's servant because of the centurion's faith that Jesus could heal the servant. And so we're moving forward from that story, and it can be found in Matthew 8. We're starting in 18, and then we're going to jump down to 23 and go to 27. And so this is how the story goes. Jesus saw that there was a crowd around him, and so he told the disciples that they were going to depart to the other side of the sea. And as Jesus got on the boat, the disciples followed him, and then a great storm arose on the sea. Even the boat was covered in waves. But Jesus himself was asleep. The disciples came to Jesus and woke him and said, "Lord, save us, we're perishing." And Jesus said to them, "Why are you afraid, men of such little faith?" Jesus got up and he rebuked the wind and the waves, and everything became perfectly calm. And the disciples were amazed and said to one another, "Who is this man that even the wind and the waves obey him?" And that's the end of our story. And so a couple questions as we kind of work through that story. First, who are the characters in this story? Who are the players in this story?
Jesus and the disciples.
Jesus and the disciples, yep.
Other people on the sea.
Right, absolutely. The people they're trying to get away from.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then what do we see from each of these characters? Kind of what happens and what do we see from them?
Jesus wants to get away from the crowd. So he tells his disciples that they're going to depart and leave.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And Jesus was tired.
Yeah.
Being followed by crowds all day.
Yeah. Tired enough to sleep through a storm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then what was the disciples' reaction in that time?
Fear.
Yeah.
Terror.
I mean, it's not irrational.
Yeah.
There's
absolutely.
a storm, and you're probably not on the safest of boats. I mean, even says that the waves are going over the boat. I feel like at that point it's a good time to start panicking. Personally.
Right. So you can empathize with.
Yeah.
with
Like,
the
I don't
disciples.
blame them for thinking the way they do.
Yeah.
At least initially.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that, what do you think of Jesus' reaction to them in that moment?
Well, it feels like he scolds them. Like a quit being so scared, little faithlings. But then it says that he rebuked the wind and the sea. So it's like he's trying to lead the disciples out of their fear instead of like punishing them out of their fear. But then he does rebuke the wind and the sea.
I would
Right.
say it's more pity. Jesus feels because he doesn't say anything cruel. He just asks a question and says
Right.
they have little faith. So
Right.
if anything, like the way I hear Jesus saying it, it's with pity. Like, ooh, why are you scared?
Mm-hmm.
Like, kind of like telling a child.
Interesting.
Like, why are you scared?
Yeah. Then what do you think of the disciples' reaction to what Jesus does?
I think it's interesting that they first cry out to Jesus, save us, but then when he does, they're still surprised and they still say, what kind of man is this? Like, they knew that they should go to Jesus and that he could save them, but then when he did save them, they were still surprised by that.
Like, there's a difference between knowing Jesus has the power and actually experiencing that power.
Yeah.
And maybe they thought saving was like zipping them across to the other side really fast or something, but actually like ending that storm.
I mean, who knows? Jesus says he can do all things and do anything, save them from whatever, but you don't really realize the ramifications of what you're asking until it happens. Like, I don't think they were realizing, like, he's just going to shut the whole storm down. Like, maybe Jesus is just really good on a boat, and he can just, like, balance the boat out so it's not swaying so much, so it's a little bit calmer for them on the boat. But no, you know, he does things, like, unhumane, not unhumane.
Supernatural.
That's not the right word, but it is.
Right, no, I know what you're saying, though.
Like, you think, oh, maybe he's just really smart, really clever.
Yeah.
Is really capable, or but no, he's doing something supernatural.
Yeah,
which is a whole nother level of mind blowing.
Yeah, just something so profound.
And they marvel and they say, "What manner of man is this?" It's like they totally miss the God part of it because they jump to his manhood, which is still. He's still man, but.
Yeah.
But obviously what you saw was not any part of man.
Right.
But have they gotten to that part, though, where Jesus is like, hey, yeah, I am God?
Right. Well, I think we're definitely seeing their understanding of who Jesus is grow. Like, just in the things that are taking place, they're watching and experiencing these things. Like, they don't have the benefit of having all the stories beforehand. So, so a really amazing story. Now, as you kind of look at this story, what are the takeaways? What are the things that maybe are meant for us to obey or for us to follow from the things that are said or the actions that are taken?
It's about not having little faith.
Yeah.
I mean, one side shows Jesus' power, which you get plenty of examples, but here the disciples have little faith, and that's what's pointed out, and I feel like that's the point we should take.
Yeah, you go ahead.
And Jesus met them where they were. I mean, he didn't wait for them to have the faith. He didn't make them prove their faith. He just met them right where they were, and he granted their request.
Yeah.
Even though it came from just a place of fear and ignorance of what actually Jesus could do in the situation.
Yeah.
And I think also along those lines, he waited for them to come to him. Like, he could have gotten up from his nap and calmed it on his own, but he waited until they were at the point where they reached out to him. So it's not just on God to save us from our storms, but it takes coming to him and like saying, we need you because we can't get ourselves out of this situation.
Yeah. And then as we look, sliding things around, as we look at this story and we see things for ourselves, but what about the people around us? How could this story be used for others?
Well, I think we've all been around people. We've been a rock for people who are in their own storms, who are, and when you're in the storm, then you find out how much or how little faith you have, because you know, if it's not tested, then you can't ever gauge that. So I think just pointing them back to, you know, why are you fearful? We don't need to add in the you have little faith part, but you know, why would you need to be scared? Why do any of us need to be scared when God can calm a storm on a sea that could kill a boat full of people?
Right.
You know, it's kind of pointing that back to the power that Jesus has.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't even, it says it became perfectly calm. It wasn't like the waves just stopped pouring into the boat, but it was perfectly calm. So just reminding people that God can completely calm their storms instead of just like giving them the energy to ride through it.
Right.
He has the power to completely calm it.
And reminding people to be crying out to God for the salvation from the storm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes God does wait for you to ask.
It can be really comforting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's probably the biggest thing. So whenever my metaphorical boat gets metaphorically rocked by a metaphorical storm, the first wave that hits my boat, I'm like, I hear you, God, abandon ship, and I'm going over. Like, I'm thinking, like, oh, this is it, this is the end.
Right.
This is God sent the storm to knock my boat, but I mean, that's just showing how little faith I may have. When all you need to do is ask, or turn to God and ask Him.
Yeah.
He can easily stop whatever little wave might be coming your way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for listening to my story. Well, Jesus' story. And I hope that it leads to, thinking about this leads to opportunities to pour into other people's lives. Hey, like there was a time where the people around Jesus were scared out of their minds, and look what He did in that situation. So, let me go ahead and pray, and then we will pause the video and go ahead and pause it now. I'll cut all this off.